It's 11:47 p.m. and a 34-year-old warehouse supervisor named Julian is standing in his kitchen, staring at a banking app that shows $412. The dishwasher is still running behind him. His phone is at 6%. He is not broke. He got a raise 6 months ago, a decent one, the kind his coworkers congratulated him for in the break room. And somehow the number on that screen has barely moved since then, like it's stuck under glass. That night, almost by accident, half scrolling out of boredom instead of curiosity, he stumbles onto a single decision that quietly changes the next 20 years of his life. We'll get to exactly what that decision was. But first, you need to understand what breaks almost everyone else. Because it is not what you think, and it is probably happening to you right now without you noticing it happen. You've been told the wrong story about wealth your whole life. You've been told it's about income, about the one big break, about finally landing the raise, the promotion, the side hustle that takes off overnight. But rich people, the ones who stay rich instead of just flashing it for a season, learn something at 22 that most people never learn at 62. And it has almost nothing to do with the size of the paycheck. 10 quiet decisions separate the people who build real wealth from the people who only look like they're building it. And most of those decisions have nothing to do with picking the right stock or timing anything perfectly. One of them is going to make you a little uncomfortable, maybe more than a little. That's fine. That means it's actually landing somewhere real instead of just passing through. Rich people learn early that feeling poor and being poor are two completely different conditions. Your coworker with the leased German sedan, the one who posts vacation photos every March, could be 4 missed paychecks from disaster. Meanwhile, there's a guy who fixes the ancient coffee machine in the break room himself, wears the same 3 flannel shirts on rotation, and quietly has more sitting in index funds than half the management team combined. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler spent years studying something called mental accounting, the way people treat money differently depending on how spending it feels rather than what it's actually worth on paper. $100 won on a scratch ticket gets spent in an evening on something forgettable. $100 earned through 3 extra hours of overtime gets treated like it actually matters. Guarded a little more carefully, spent a little more slowly. Same $100, same buying power at the register, completely different fate, purely because of the story attached to it in someone's head before it ever left their wallet. People who look rich are often just excellent at spending in ways that feel good in the moment, and remarkably good at making sure everyone around them sees it happen. People who become rich stop confusing the two a long time ago, and stop needing anyone to see the difference at all. That's the exact fork Julian hit that night in his kitchen. Most people ask themselves, can I afford this? Rich people ask a completely different question. What does this cost me 5 years from now? A $400 phone upgrade isn't really $400 if that same money could have been sitting in an account, compounding quietly in the background. It's not about deprivation, and it was never about deprivation. It's about time. Every purchase carries a shadow price. The version of that money if you had simply waited, sitting quietly in the background of every swipe of a card. Most people never see the shadow. They see the object, the feeling, the relief of the moment. Rich people can't stop seeing it once they know to look. And once you know to look, you can't unsee it either. At the coffee shop, at the checkout line, at the dealership. That's not extra discipline. That's a different set of eyes trained on the exact same dollar everyone else is holding. Comfort, it turns out, is the quiet enemy of growth. And rich people learn to court discomfort on purpose instead of stumbling into it by accident. Think about anyone at the gym who complains every single session about how heavy the bar feels. And notice that the complaining is the exact proof that something is actually changing. Most people avoid that same discomfort in their finances completely. They keep their money in the same checking account their parents used 30 years ago. They never open a brokerage account because the paperwork feels intimidating. They never negotiate a salary because the conversation feels awkward in the moment. So they let a smaller number sit there for years instead of enduring 5 uncomfortable minutes. If a financial decision doesn't feel slightly uncomfortable, it's probably not moving anything at all. Ease is often just wealth quietly leaking out the side door while nobody's watching the exit, month after month, so gradually that it never once sets off an alarm. Here's the lesson that stings the most, and it's the one nobody puts on a poster. Rich people learn early that most of the people closest to them will never fully understand their choices, and they learn to be okay with that discomfort too. Julian's own brother thought he'd lost his mind for turning down an easy truck loan, so he could instead max out a retirement account nobody in his family had ever bothered to open. His mother asked him more than once why he was saving instead of living, as if the two were opposites instead of the same words spoken at different speeds. Nobody talks about this tax, the social one. Every dollar redirected toward the future is a dollar. Someone nearby might quietly judge you for not spending on the present, and every skipped dinner out or delayed upgrade becomes a small, silent explanation. You owe no one, but somehow feel like you do. The people who build wealth pay that tax without flinching. The people who stay stuck keep trying to dodge it and end up paying a far heavier one later, in the currency of regret, which never shows up on a bank statement but costs more than anything that does. If one of these has already made you think of a specific person in your own life, a sibling, a coworker, a version of yourself from a few years back, say so in the comments because that's usually the sign this is actually working on you and not just playing quietly in the background while you scroll. Debt has a personality of its own, and most people never bother to actually meet it. There's the kind that buys an asset that pays you back over time, like a rental property or a skill that doubles your earning power. And there's the kind that only ever buys a feeling, one that evaporates the moment the bill arrives in the mail. A friend of Julian's from high school, a guy who now runs 2 dental clinics across town, once said the real shift for him wasn't a raise at all. It was a slow Sunday afternoon when he finally sat down with every statement he owed and split it into those 2 honest piles for the first time in his adult life. No distractions, no phone, just the numbers in front of him. Almost none of it was working for him. Most of it had been quietly working against him every single month, like a slow leak in a tire he kept refilling at the gas station, instead of ever actually patching, telling himself the fix could wait 1 more week. Here's the part that tends to rearrange something in people's heads. Rich people don't actually love risk, despite what the myth suggests. What they love is asymmetry. Situations where what they could lose is small and what they could gain is enormous. That is an entirely different mindset from gambling. It's the difference between betting the rent money on a hot tip and spending $40 on a course that teaches a skill sellable for the rest of a career. One is risk-chasing adrenaline, the kind that feels exciting for an evening and empty for a year. The other is risk-engineered so the downside barely scratches you, while the upside changes everything, quietly, without a single dramatic moment attached to it. Rich people learn to hunt for that exact shape of decision, again and again in every corner of life. Not only in money, from which job offer to take, to which conversation is worth having, even if it's uncomfortable. Net worth and lifestyle are supposed to move at different speeds. And this is the lesson that quietly undoes almost everyone, precisely because it's invisible. Income rises, and spending creeps up right alongside it so smoothly that even after several raises, life still feels exactly as stretched as it did at the very first one. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, the treadmill, where every upgrade becomes the new baseline within weeks, and the excitement fades right back to zero. Rich people fight this on purpose, deliberately, almost stubbornly. They let income climb. They refuse to let their lifestyle climb at the same pace beside it, even when every ad and every algorithm is built specifically to convince them otherwise. That widening gap between the two is the entire quiet engine of wealth, and it looks completely unremarkable from the outside, which is exactly why almost nobody notices it happening to the person doing it. Close the gap, and someone can earn 6 figures and still feel exactly as broke as they did at 19. Even slightly widen it, and something starts compounding without demanding attention every single day, working quietly in the background while the rest of life carries on. This is where Julian's story finally clicks into place. That night in his kitchen, he hadn't found a stock tip or a clever side hustle. He'd realized he'd never once automated a single dollar of saving in his life. Every bit he'd ever set aside required a fresh decision. In the moment, competing against 100 other decisions for the exact same sliver of willpower. Willpower is a terrible long-term financial strategy because it runs out by Tuesday afternoon without fail. Right around the same time, a stressful email lands or a friend suggests takeout. So the wealthy remove the decision entirely, upstream of the moment it could ever go wrong. Money moves before they ever get the chance to see it, spend it, or talk themselves out of it over a long, convincing internal argument. Not because they're more disciplined than everyone else, and not because they were raised differently, because they stopped relying on discipline in the first place and built a system that doesn't care how tired or tempted anyone feels on any given day, including the bad ones. Time is the one asset that can never be refinanced, restocked, borrowed against, or earned back once it's gone, and rich people learn early to price nearly every decision accordingly, quietly, almost without noticing they're doing it. That coworker who spends 3 hours a night scrolling and insists he's too busy to learn anything about investing actually has more available time than he thinks. He's just spending it somewhere that pays him nothing back. Someone working 2 exhausting jobs, on the other hand, might have very little spare time at all, and their entire strategy has to be built around that honest reality instead of pretending otherwise, or copying advice built for someone with a completely different life. The habit worth building is auditing both currencies, money and time, side by side, instead of obsessing over only the one that shows up neatly in a bank statement. Most people only ever check their balance. They almost never check their calendar with the same level of honesty, the same willingness to admit where it's actually going. And here's the turn none of the first 9 lessons quite prepare you for. After hearing 9 ideas like this, it's easy to expect the 10th to be some final trick, a hack, a secret percentage, a formula nobody's shared before. It isn't. The lesson rich people learn earliest and hold on to longest is that wealth was never really about the money at all. It was always about buying back control over time and over decisions, one unglamorous, boring choice at a time, repeated for years without applause. Julian didn't get rich that night in his kitchen, and nothing about his bank balance changed before he went to bed. He simply stopped lying to himself about where his money had actually been going for the first time in his adult life, and set up one automatic transfer before he could talk himself out of it. That's the whole secret everyone keeps hunting for in stock tips and side hustles and shortcuts that promise to skip the boring part. There isn't one, and there never was. There's only the moment someone decides to stop looking away from the truth about their own habits. And the years after that moment, quietly adding up while nobody's applauding. Sit with that for a second. Somewhere in these 10 lessons, one of them landed differently than the rest, sharper than the others, closer to home. Maybe it was the social tax nobody warned you about. Maybe it was realizing you've never once split your own debt into what's working for you and what's quietly working against you. Maybe it was simply recognizing yourself in a kitchen at midnight, finally done pretending a number on a screen would fix itself if you just waited long enough, checked it again tomorrow, told yourself next month would be different. That's not a coincidence. That's the lesson you already half knew and just hadn't said out loud yet, not even to yourself, not even on the nights it kept you up. Nobody needs 10 new habits by tomorrow morning. Nobody needs a spreadsheet, a budget app, or a 5-year plan taped to the fridge by sunrise. What's actually needed is one honest look at the gap between what comes in and how life is being lived, and the nerve to widen that gap by a single inch this week, without telling anyone or waiting for permission. Held for years, that 1 inch is the entire quiet story behind everyone who ever became permanently, unshowily wealthy, the kind of wealthy that doesn't need to be seen to be real. Subscribe if tonight moved something in how you see your own money, because there's a lot more of this coming, and the next one might be the exact lesson that changes your year.